The day my wife packed her bags, I stood in the doorway, silent. Not because I didn't have words, but because I'd spent 7 years swallowing them. 7 years. Think about that for a second. 7 years of conversations I started in my head and never finished out loud. 7 years of, I'll say something later. 7 years of believing that if I just kept showing up, go to work, paying the bills, fixing what was broken around the house, she would somehow know. She would feel it. She would understand. But she didn't, and honestly, how could she? I remember that morning like it was burned into me. It was a Tuesday. Nothing dramatic about the day itself. The sun was out. Birds were doing whatever birds do. But inside that house, something had already shifted in a way I couldn't name yet. She had been quieter than usual for weeks. Not the comfortable kind of quiet that long-married couples settle into. A different kind. A heavier kind. The kind of quiet that has weight to it. I noticed it. And I said nothing that I told myself she was stressed. I told myself it would pass. I told myself that this was just what marriage felt like after years together, a little worn at the edges, a little less shiny than it used to be, but still holding that I was wrong. That Tuesday morning I came downstairs and there were 2 suitcases near the front door. Not packed in a rage. No slammed drawers, no screaming. Just 2 neatly packed suitcases sitting there like a quiet verdict. She was calm. That was somehow the hardest part. I had always imagined that if we ever got to a breaking point, there would be a fight, something explosive and dramatic, something I could argue back against. But there was no fight left in her. She had already done the grieving. While I was going through the motions of daily life, completely unaware, she had already mourned us. And now she was just leaving. She said something to me. I don't even remember the exact words now. Isn't that awful? The most important conversation of my adult life. And I was so paralyzed I couldn't even receive it properly. I just stood there in the doorway, silent, not because I didn't have words, but because I'd spent 7 years swallowing them. She walked past me, put the suitcases in her car, and drove away. And I just stood there. I don't know how long I stood in that doorway. Could have been 2 minutes. Could have been 20. Tom, does something strange to you in moments like that? What I know is this. In that doorway, I had so much to say. I had years' worth of things to say, and I said none of it. If I could go back, there are 3 things I would have told her. 3 specific things. 3 things that might have changed everything. And if you're watching this right now, there's a chance you're either standing in that doorway yourself, or you're standing close enough to it that you can still turn around. This video is for you. After she left, I didn't just grieve, I studied. And I want to be honest with you about what that grief actually looked like first, because I think a lot of men watching this will relate to it and won't want to admit it. For the first few weeks, I did what most men do. I shut down. I went through the motions. I went to work. I came home to a quiet house. I ate bad food. I watched too much TV. I told myself I was fine when people asked. I performed okayness very convincingly because that is what we are trained to do as men. Perform okayness, even when we are absolutely falling apart on the inside. But somewhere around week 3 or 4, something cracked open in me. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed that used to be ours, just sitting there, not doing anything, and I had this overwhelming, terrifying thought. What if this is my fault? Not in the way people use that phrase to beat themselves up. I mean genuinely, constructively. What if I did something, or more accurately, what if I failed to do something that I could have controlled? That question terrified me. But it also, for the first time, gave me something to work with. So I started reading. I read every book on marriage, communication I could find. I read books on attachment theory, how the way we bonded with our parents as children shapes the way we show up in romantic relationships as adults. I read books on emotional intelligence, on vulnerability, on what it actually means to be emotionally present for another person. I read John Gottman's research on what makes marriages succeed and fail. I read about the science of intimacy. I read things that made me uncomfortable. I read things that made me feel deeply, painfully seen. And then I did something even harder. I talked to people. I sat with a therapist for the first time in my life. I want to say that again because I know how loaded that sentence is for a lot of men watching this. I sat with a therapist. For the first time in 40-something years of being alive, I let a professional ask me questions about my inner world, and I actually tried to answer them honestly. It was one of the most difficult and most worthwhile things I have ever done. I talked to men who had been divorced. I talked to men who had almost lost their marriages and found their way back. I talked to men who were happily married and asked them, really asked them, what they did differently, what they said, how they showed up, what their wives told them mattered most. And across all of it, all the books, all the research, all the conversations, one pattern emerged so clearly that I couldn't avoid it. Most men don't lose their marriages because they stopped loving their wives. They lose them because they never learned how to say it, not how to feel it. Most of us feel it deeply. We love our wives. We are terrified of losing them. We are grateful for them in ways we carry around silently, like a treasure we never take out of our pocket. But we never learned, nobody ever taught us, how to translate that feeling into language, into action, into presence that we grew up watching men around us who are the same way. Strong, silent, capable providers. Men who showed love by working hard and fixing things and showing up. And those things matter, but they are not enough. They have never been enough. And somewhere along the line, the women in our lives stopped waiting for us to figure that out. I was one of those men. Completely, painfully one of those men. And if you're watching this, there's a chance you might be too. The good news is this is a learnable skill. That's what I want you to take from my story. I'm not here to make you feel bad about who you've been. I'm here to show you who you can become. Because I became him. Not perfectly, not overnight. But I became him. Here's what I learned, so here they are. The 3 things I wish I had told my wife. I want to go deep on each of these because they are not just phrases. They are philosophies. They are ways of showing up. And if you understand the why behind each one, you'll never forget to practice them. Number 1, I see you, not her appearance. Not you look nice today, although that matters too, and you should say it. I mean something much deeper than that, I see your effort. I see what you carry. I see what you do every single day that I have never once acknowledged out loud. Here's something I learned in my research that broke me a little bit when I read it. One of the leading predictors of marital breakdown, particularly from the wife's perspective, is the feeling of being invisible. Not unloved, necessarily. Invisible. There is a difference. Your wife can know intellectually that you love her and still feel completely unseen by you. Because love, without acknowledgement, becomes background noise. It becomes the wallpaper. It's there, but nobody looks at it. Think about what your wife does in a day. Think about it seriously, not in the abstract. Think about the specific things, the meals planned or prepared, the appointments remembered, the emotional labor of keeping track of everyone's needs, the way she notices when something is off with the kids before anyone else does, the way she manages the invisible architecture of your household that you have probably never once stopped to name out loud. I never named it. Not once in 7 years did I look at my wife and say, I see how hard you work. I see the effort you put into this family. I see the sacrifices you make, and I want you to know they do not go unnoticed. I noticed them privately. I appreciated them internally, but I never spoke about it. And here's what my therapist told me that I think about all the time. Unexpressed gratitude is functionally identical to ingratitude. From the outside, from your wife's perspective, a man who is grateful but silent looks exactly the same as a man who doesn't notice at all. Women leave feeling invisible long before they leave. Physically, by the time she packs those suitcases, she has spent months, maybe years, wondering if you see her at all. Wondering if any of it registers. Wondering if she could disappear and whether you would notice before dinner got cold. What does I see you look like in practice? It's specific. It's not a general, I appreciate everything you do. That phrase has become so generic it lands like nothing. It's specific. It's, I noticed that you stayed up late to make sure everything was ready for tomorrow. And I want you to know I don't take that for granted. It's, you handled that situation with the kids better than I ever could have, and I respect you enormously for it. It's looking her in the eye and naming the invisible thing she did. It takes 30 seconds. It costs nothing. And it is one of the most powerful things you can do for the health of your marriage. I didn't do it. I wish I had. Number 2, I'm scared too. This one is harder. I know it's harder. Stay with me that I hid my fears behind silence. That was my default operating mode for the entire duration of my marriage. Something would worry me about money, about the future, about whether I was doing enough, being enough, and instead of bringing that to my wife, instead of letting her in, I would go quiet. I would get a little more distant, a little more internal. a little harder to reach, and she read that silence as indifference. That is the cruel irony of masculine emotional shutdown. We go silent because we care too much, because we are overwhelmed, because we don't know how to process what we're feeling, because we were never given the tools to do it. But from the outside, from the perspective of the person who loves us, our silence communicates that we don't care, that we're not invested, that we've checked out. Meanwhile, we are absolutely drowning on the inside. That am why wife used to say to me, and I would shut this down every time she said it. I just don't know what's going on with you. And I would say nothing. I'm fine and move on. What I never told her was that I was terrified. I was terrified of failing her. I was terrified of not being the man I thought I was supposed to be. I was terrified of showing her my uncertainty because I thought that was my job, to be the certain one, the stable one, the one who had it together. Nobody told me that she didn't need me to have it together. She needed me to be real with her. There's a concept in relationship psychology called co-regulation. It means that human beings, all human beings, not just women, are biologically wired to feel safer when they share emotional experiences with people they love. When you let your wife see your fear, your uncertainty, your vulnerability, you are not becoming less of a man in her eyes. You are becoming more of a partner. You are creating an experience of we are in this together that is fundamentally bonding. When you hide everything, you create an experience of I am alone in this marriage, and that is an experience. She will eventually get tired of that. I wish I had sat down with my wife early on and regularly throughout and said, I'm scared too. I'm scared I'm not doing this right. I'm scared I'm falling short. I don't know what I'm doing half the time, and I need you to know that so we can face it together. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is the doorway to real connection. I walked past that doorway for 7 years without ever opening it. That don't do what I did. Number 3, I choose you. Still, this is the one that gets me the most, because it is also the simplest, and it is the one I was most negligent about. Love in a long-term marriage has a tendency to become assumed. You got married. You said the vows. You both know you love each other. It goes without saying, right? Wrong that it absolutely does not go without saying. Not once. Not ever. Here's something I want every married man watching this to hear and really absorb. Your wife does not need you to love her just once at the altar. She needs you to choose her repeatedly, actively, deliberately, out loud. Think about what the early days of a relationship look like. You pursued her. You called when you said you would. You planned things. You told her she was beautiful. You told her she mattered. You showed her, through 100 small daily actions, that she was your priority, your choice, your person. And then somewhere in the comfort of commitment, a lot of men, myself included, stopped doing those things. Not because the feeling went away, but because we assumed it was understood. We assumed that staying was a choice. We assumed that presence meant preference, but she didn't feel chosen. She felt tolerated. She felt like the default. And there is nothing lonelier than being someone's default when you use to be their deliberate choice. I choose you. Still. Said regularly. Said specifically. Said when there's no particular occasion for it. Said in the middle of a regular Tuesday. Said after an argument. Said when things are hard and imperfect and messy. Especially then that IT means, out of everything I could be doing, everyone I could be with, any life I could be living, I choose this one. I choose you. Love isn't assumed. It needs to be spoken. I stopped speaking it. And in the silence, she stopped believing it. 3 phrases. 3 philosophies. 3 things that, if I had practiced them consistently, might have written a completely different story. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. I can almost hear it. This sounds soft. Real men don't talk like this. This is too emotional. My father never talked like this, and his marriage lasted 40 years. And I want to address that directly because I used to think the exact same thing. That right there, that resistance you're feeling, is the exact lie that ended my marriage. And I don't say that to be dramatic. I say it because I have traced it back carefully, and it is true that we were sold a story about masculinity. A very specific, very narrow, very damaging story. And it goes something like this. A real man is strong, self-sufficient, and silent. A real man handles his emotions internally and doesn't burden others with them. A real man provides and protects. And that is the full extent of his emotional obligation. A real man doesn't need to talk about feelings because feelings are weakness, and weakness is something to be ashamed of. That story has been passed down through generations of men who learned it from men who learned it from men. And it has left a trail of broken marriages, lonely households, and men in their 50s and 60s who don't know their own children and don't understand why they're. Wives feel like strangers. That I want to be very clear about something. There is nothing weak about emotional honesty. Nothing. The men I have spoken to who have the strongest, most resilient, most genuinely happy marriages are not the ones who are the most stoic. They're the ones who are the most real. They're the ones who figured out, either through wisdom or through pain, that being emotionally present is not a threat to their masculinity. It is an expression of it. Think about what it actually takes to sit with someone in their pain, to name your own fear out loud, to say, I choose you in a moment when pride might tempt you to stay quiet, to be consistently, vulnerably present in a relationship year after year after year. That is not soft. That requires a level of courage that most people, most men, never develop. Because it's easier to stay behind the wall, that it is so much easier to stay behind the wall. But I want you to think about what staying behind the wall actually costs you. Not theoretically. Concretely, it costs you genuine intimacy. The kind where your partner actually knows you. Not the performance of you. Not the competent, capable version of you that you show the world, but the real you with the fears and the doubts and the hopes that you've never said out loud. Most men who have been married for years have never been truly known by their wives, and they wonder why they feel lonely. It costs your wife her sense of partnership, because when you shut down, she has to carry the emotional weight of the relationship alone. She becomes the only one tracking how things are going, the only one worrying about the state of your connection, the only one doing the relational maintenance. And she will do it for a while. Most women will, but eventually she will get tired of being the only one who shows up emotionally, and she will start to pull away. And then one day you will come downstairs, and there will be 2 suitcases by the front door. I've heard men say, and I said this myself, I'm just not an emotional person. That's just not who I am. And I want to challenge that with everything I have. You are not unemotional. You are untrained. There's a profound difference. You feel things deeply as anyone. You simply were never taught what to do with those feelings. You were taught to put them away, and you became very, very good at putting them away. But here's the thing about things you put away. They dawn. They disappear. They sit in a box somewhere inside you, and they come out eventually through anger, through distance, through shutting down at the exact moment your wife needs you to open up. Learning to speak your inner world is a skill. It can be developed. It is not too late, unless you wait until it is what's stronger, keeping your walls up until she walks out the door, or having the courage to take them down before it's too late. Silence isn't strength. It's just fear wearing a mask. And that mask is costing you more than you know. All right, I want to give you something practical. Something you can start doing tonight. Because everything I've talked about so far is true, and it's important, but I also know that be more vulnerable and make her feel seen can feel abstract if nobody shows you what that actually looks like in practice. So here it is. The technique I now call the 60-second check-in. And I want to explain not just what it is, but why it works, because when you understand the science behind it, you'll take it more seriously. Why timing is everything here is something that most relationship advice gets wrong. It focuses entirely on what to say and almost nothing on when to say it. You can say the most loving, perfectly crafted thing to your wife at the wrong moment, and it will land like it was said in a foreign language. She won't receive it. Not because she doesn't want to, but because human beings are only capable of emotional receptivity when they feel emotionally safe. And emotional safety is something that has to be built consistently, over time, through small repeated actions. This is the part where most men miss it. They think, I'll have a big conversation. I'll plan a special evening. I'll wait for the right moment to really open up and say everything I need to say. But the right moment doesn't arrive on its own. It has to be built, brick by brick, day by day, through small, consistent deposits into the emotional bank account of your relationship. Which brings me to the 60-second check-in. What it is every evening. And I mean every evening. Not when you feel like it. Not when things are good, but every single evening as a non-negotiable. You take 60 seconds. Just 60 seconds. No phones. Screens off. You look at your wife, actually look at her, and you ask 3 questions. Question 1, how are you feeling? Not, how was your day? Which is a question people answer on autopilot with fine and busy. How are you feeling is a different question. It is an invitation to be real. It signals that you're interested not just in the events of her day, but in her emotional experience of those events. There is a world of difference. Question 2, did I miss anything today? This is a humble question. It is a question that says, I know I'm not always perfectly attuned, and I want to know if something happened. If I said something, didn't say something, did something, didn't do something that landed badly. It gives her permission to tell you without having to initiate a difficult conversation. It makes it safe for her to be honest. And it signals that you are paying attention and that her experience matters to you. Question 3, what do you need from me tonight? This one is transformative because it removes the guesswork. Most men, I was guilty of this, try to solve or fix things based on what we think our wives need, which is often completely wrong. We offer solutions when they want to be heard. We give advice when they want companionship. We go quiet when they need reassurance. What you need from me tonight cuts through all of that. It asks directly, and it tells her something even more important, that you are willing and ready to give it. That's it. 3 questions. 60 seconds. Every evening. The 60-second check-in works because of a concept called consistent microinvestment. In long-term relationships, connection is not primarily built through grand gestures, the anniversary trips, and expensive gifts, and the occasional perfect date night. Those things matter, but they are not the foundation. The foundation is built through small, consistent daily acts of attention and care. Psychologist John Gottman calls these bids for connection, small moments where one partner turns toward the other and essentially says, I am here, I see. You matter to me. When those bids are consistently met, when they are responded to with presence and attention, trust deepens. Safety grows. The relationship develops a kind of resilience that can weather the inevitable hard times. When those bids are consistently ignored or missed, not because of malice, but because we're distracted, checked out, on our phones, mentally at the office, the opposite happens. The emotional bank account empties slowly, and one day it hits 0, and you find yourself standing in a doorway, watching someone you love drive away, and you have no idea how you got there. The 60-second check-in is a daily bid for connection. It is a daily signal that says, you're my priority. I am paying attention. You're not invisible to me. 60 seconds. 3 questions. Every evening that I tease sounds small, but the consistency is what transforms it from a nice habit into the kind of safety that makes a woman feel, at a deep cellular level, that she is not going to be abandoned, that she is seen, that she is chosen. Every single day. I wish I had known about this 10 years ago. I wish someone had sat me down and said, this is how you water a marriage. This is how you keep it alive. Not with grand gestures once a year, but with consistent attention every day. But I know it now. And now you know it too. So use it that, if this hit home, if any part of what I've shared today felt like I was describing your life, your marriage, your relationship, I want you to know something first and foremost. You are not alone, not even close. Every single day, good men, genuinely good men who love their families and would do anything for the people in their lives, lose their marriages. Not because they're cruel, not because they stopped caring, but because they were never taught how to show up emotionally. Because they were handed a blueprint for manhood that left out the most important room in the house. And that is not entirely your fault. The way most of us were raised, the models we were given, the messages we absorbed about what it means to be a man, none of it prepared us for the emotional demands of long-term intimacy. We were prepared to provide. We were prepared to protect. We were not prepared to be present. But here is the thing I need you to hear. Understanding where the gap came from does not excuse you from closing it. The past is an explanation, not a permission slip. You know better now, which means, starting today, you can do better. And the stakes could not be higher. I'm talking about your marriage, your family, the home your children grow up in, the model of love and partnership that they will carry into their own relationships decades from now. The relationship you will have or not have with your wife in your 50s, your 60s, your 70s. The kind of man you will see when you look in the mirror at the end of a long life. These are not small things. These are everything. So let me leave you with this. The 3 things I wish I had said to my wife: I see you, I'm scared too, and I choose you still, are not complicated. They are not time-consuming. They do not require therapy or a personality transplant or becoming someone you are not. They require one thing: the decision to say them, and then the discipline to keep saying them. The 60-second check-in is not complicated either. 3 questions, 60 seconds, every evening. That's the whole thing. The complexity is not in the technique, it's in the consistency. It's choosing night after night to put the phone down and look at your wife and ask her how she's really doing. That's the work. It's not glamorous. It doesn't make for a dramatic story, but it is the work that keeps marriages alive. That I didn't do it, and I lost something I can never fully get back. You still have the chance to do it differently. What I want you to do right now, if this video helped you, if something I said today cracked something open or gave you language for something you've been feeling but couldn't articulate, I want you to drop a 1 in the comments below. Just 1. That's it. I read every single comment on this channel, and I want to know where it landed. And if it helped you, share it. Not as a passive repost, but as a deliberate act. Think of one man in your life, a brother, a friend, a colleague, someone you know whose marriage is struggling or who you can see slowly drifting from his partner, and send this to him directly. Don't post it vaguely. Send it directly with a message that says, "This made me think of you." Watch it. You might be saving his marriage without even knowing it. That is not an exaggeration. That is literally what this kind of content can do. 1 video, 1 conversation, 1 crack of light through a wall that has been up for years. Sometimes that's all it takes. If you want to go deeper, if you want more content about emotional presence, communication, and marriage, how to become the kind of partner your relationship deserves, subscribe and hit the bell. I put out new content regularly on exactly these topics. Real talk, practical strategies, no performance, no posturing. Just the truth as I've learned it, the hard way. And to any man watching this who is currently standing in that doorway, who can feel the distance growing and doesn't know what to do about it, please hear me. It is not too late. Right now, today, this evening, you can do something different. You can put down your phone, find your wife, look her in the eye, and ask her how she's really feeling. That one moment won't fix everything, but it will be the beginning of fixing everything. Start there. I'll see you in the next one. Don't wait until she's packing.